Hi, my name is Caroline Talley. I'm from FinancialForce.com. We have the leading accounting solution built on Salesforce's platform. And I'd like to present Scott Travasos, who's one of our favorite customers, here telling you about his story. So, Scott.
Thanks, everyone. It's been a good couple of sessions so far. We've some of the sessions that I've talked about. Oh, I should put on the mic. Sorry, I'm sorry. All right, there we go. Okay, great. Going to try to have a little bit interactive, as a session can be today, talking about kind of the future of finance and social accounting. A few things about Financial Force we can come back to later and ask questions, but they are the #1 accounting app on Force.com. They have professional services. They're backed by Salesforce, and they're growing rapidly here in San Francisco. Again, this is me. I was profiled a little while ago in CFO Magazine just talking about social accounting. That's enough for that slide. Forbes came out with a great article, and I encourage you to read it if you haven't already, about social power and the coming corporate revolution. It says both your customers and your employees have started marching this burgeoning social media multitude, and you better get out of their way or learn to embrace them. What we're going to talk today is about how finance and social can really come together to bring more power to your organization. We're going to try this. I don't know if any of you have ever used this before, but I'm going to tell you what every conference person's not supposed to say. Get out your cell phones. I know you have them out already. And we're going to try this cool little poll, and I'll tell you how to get it if you ever want to borrow it yourself. So go to your texting, open up a new message, and in the to field, put 22333. And then in the send field, you can put, does your company use enterprise social media internally? And you can put 566901 for yes, and 574387 for no, and hopefully this will work when you start sending things. Supposed to, we'll look at this. It's supposed to do the codes. It normally does the codes live. Let's see, live audience polling. A technology session that fails on technology. Sorry about that. How about that? Well, we're going to skip this. Normally, it works. It's worked in every presentation I've given before. And when you say yes and no, it starts doing everything. It's a cool interactive poll. It has the results at the bottom. I've never had it give results and then not update. So,
but we do it by hand.
Interesting. We will, but that defeats the whole purpose. So, how many people use social media internally in their organization? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Few, about half. Okay, about half. So, sorry about the poll not working, but thanks for your results. I forgot to mention, I should have done this before, but I'll channel my inner Ryan Seacrest. Standard text rates might have applied there, so I hope none of you are paying per text. We should have a sponsor for this. I'm just going to show a short video. This is just a minute and a half long, and we don't have sound in here. I'm going to stand close, but we don't really need sound to say it. It's going to show you a little about some stats on social media, social web. We're having all kinds of problems. Someone said that this was a technology conference that didn't have wireless. Let's try this now. Thanks. I think what we're seeing is, and I mentioned this somewhere else, is that I think email is going away. It might sound heretical. A lot of us live on email. I'm sure if any of us being gone for the day opened up our email box for the first time tomorrow, we'd have anywhere from 50 to 200 emails in there. But if we look from 2010, just from 2010 to 2011, the growth of Facebook and the number of users in web uses of minutes has been astronomical. We also see that social users exceed email users. So back in 2007, you can see kind of in the grayscale where some social users were, and you see email users have climbed over time, but certainly not at the rate of the social media users. The quote from CEO of Ripple, which is now a division of Salesforce. They changed their name. I can't remember their new name, but it's something like it's not work.com, but it's something like that. The expectation now is that the tools people use at work are as easy and as fun as the ones they use in their personal life. So I remember when I was in college, no email. When I was in grad school, email was just coming about, and a few people that we called geeks would kind of email each other, us people who at least thought we were cool. If we were cool, we really would have been doing that, and I probably would be a multi-billionaire today. But they were emailing, but we weren't emailing yet. Then I got my first job, and we had this email system called the VAX. Did anyone use the VAX back in the day? And so here I am at work with this new exciting tool. Right? Like one of the coolest things out there was only available at work. And then at work I got my first cell phone, and no one had personal cell phones. No one bought a personal cell phone back then. You only got it if your job offered it. And then I got one of those sweet Palm 7s with antenna that really didn't do anything, but it looked cool, like it kind of was the first smartphone. And everything that was fun about technology was through work. Now think about today. What's the most fun technology you have? It's not work. Especially in the finance field, I would say the funnest technology is not work. Your funnest technology is your Facebook, is your Twitter, is your phone. A lot of people these days even have two phones. They have one work phone and one personal phone because there's so much things on it. I think this last quote, I'll come back to it in different ways a few times, but it just can't be highlighted enough. The expectation now is that tools people use at work are as easy and as fun as what they use in their personal life. So talking about the cloud, we're at ProformaTECH. People know what the cloud is, but just for background's sake, the cloud is everywhere. Email is the cloud, Gmail, Hotmail, even a few people have AOL. I saw someone with the AOL. I had to email someone with the AOL.com email the other day, and I gave them some grief about it. Productivity tools, Box, Dropbox, Evernote are really changing how we do data and files. And just in today's session, we're going to talk more about how social media can interact in business and a little about finance in the cloud, particularly some insight into one of the cloud accounting platforms, Financial Force, that really integrates all of this together. Today we work in virtual companies. We're all talking. We have the days of someone working in one office and having a headquarters where almost everyone works is over. I'd ask for a show of hands, but I'm sure we all have multiple offices, multiple people, multiple time zones that we need to interact with. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to be more social in the way we work, but most companies, not all, there are a few leaders, but most companies are doing it the hard way. The 2 cell phone example, the conference call, the Skype. We have chat, we have email. I don't know about you, but when I get out of this session and I go and I think about I want to check in with work, it's a little confusing. Where do I check in? There's so many different ways I can check in. And I think what you're going to see over the next 5 years in particular is this come into one head where you have one check-in. Just like for a lot of people, their personal life, they have one check-in as Facebook. I think work is going to get more to this. Some social media stats. So basically there are 3 social media corporate enterprise platforms that dominate the market. The first one is Yammer, had over 5 million corporate users in 2012. For those that don't know, Yammer was acquired by Microsoft recently, and I have the price tag wrong, but I think it was $2 billion. And I'll just pause there to ask you to think about that for a second. The #1 email provider in the world acquired Yammer. Microsoft they're a little bit slow at times. Hopefully no one works for Microsoft here. I don't mean to offend. But But they're seeing the handwriting on the wall. They're not going to get left out of this game, and they acquired, in my estimation, the leading independent social enterprise network. Jive has 15 million users. Jive has more users. I'll contend that most of the users they have are with just huge multinational companies, so their user base seems a lot larger. They don't have as many companies. But I've used it before. It's a good product. It's not quite as intuitive as Yammer and Chatter. And then Chatter is integrated, and we're going to spend some time on Chatter today. For those who use Salesforce, quick show of hands, how many people use Salesforce in here? All right, over 80%. Chatter's integrated in that. It had 3.8 million subscribers in 2012 and is growing quickly. What does Enterprise Social Network do? It enables people to connect, discover, and collaborate. The quote at the bottom, the more you expose and share your problems, the more successful you become. It's not about the top executive dictating what needs to be done. It's about providing individuals with the power to connect. 5 years ago in business, maybe some of your businesses today, what happens is the CEO sends out an email, or a department head sends out an email. And then there's a lot of back and forth over the email. Sometimes with email, you don't know who to ask, who to collaborate with. Does it just go to one person, or do you CC the whole department? You don't want to offend anybody by not CCing them, but you don't want to over-CC people. And what this tool does, it really solves a lot of that problems. I'm going to show one more quick video. It's just 2 minutes. We have plenty of time here today. And if you can't hear this, let me know, and I'll go ahead and stop it. But hopefully you can hear it. We don't have a microphone hooked up in here, but it just shows Chatter. I will say Chatter is almost the same as Yammer and Jive from what it does internally. Chatter just, in my opinion, integrates with things better. We'll get into that, but it's not necessarily a unique presentation for Chatter.
No matter what kind of business you're in, Chatter helps you connect with the people in your company to work together on projects, share ideas, and stay connected. Getting started is easy. Just sign up with your company email address, and we'll send you an email with a link so you can finish the sign-up process. Best of all, Chatter is private and secure, so you can work together on confidential company projects, like business plans, sales strategies, or product designs. Let's take a look. It all starts with your profile. Your profile is how you let people know more about you and what you're working on. At the top of the page is your status bar. This is where you can post updates, ask questions, and even post files to get feedback from the people you work with. Now let's take a look at David's Chatter tab, his home base for Chatter. In the middle of the page, you see his feed. The feed gives David updates on people he's following, groups he belongs to, and information that matters to him, like updates to his files. Trending topics track the most popular discussion topics, helping David stay up to date on what's going on in his company. Chatter makes it easy to share large files and get feedback without clogging up people's inboxes. When David's working on a new marketing presentation for his company, he creates a group, a shared workspace where he can post what he's working on and get help from coworkers. And when he has questions, he can get the best answer quickly on Chatter. You can also get Chatter on your desktop. You can share files by just dragging and dropping them, and even get instant notifications and pop-up alerts. And when David's in meetings or on the road, he uses Chatter on his mobile device to share photos of what he's experiencing, preview presentations and documents, and respond to changes. Sign up now for free at chatter.com.
So Salesforce is not a sponsor. I'm not per se endorsing.
Chatter is a
Sorry.
private.
But I think the key point there is what you saw is that there's the ability, you can post things. You can post things that the whole department can see, or any group. What I love from my personal Chatter is I subscribe to a number of different feeds, so to speak, a number of different users groups. And my main feed will cycle everything through, but there's some groups that aren't my day-to-day responsibility. So I'm not paying super close attention to them. So maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, I'll click on there, kind of scan 5-10 minutes, digest what's going on. Other things are extreme importance to me, like the finance group or the IT group, which I oversee. Anything on there I can instantly see, but also when people have issues, I'm out for today. If someone says this isn't working, instead of just emailing me and not knowing if I'm in the session right now, they can put it on Chatter. And if anyone else in the organization knows the answer to it, they're able to answer it. If not, when I'm out of this session, I can go check Chatter. I can see that something was for me. I can supply the answer. And then besides just the person who asked the answer, the whole organization can see what is going on. Why we're talking about today is social enterprise media has been primarily for sales. In most studies that have been done, it's been primarily for the sales department. What I'm talking about today and what I'm saying we should think about is what influence can it have on finance and operations, which is, I assume, everyone in this room. What does it do? It improves communication, it improves the speed of communication, it increases the internal network of collaborators, and it's a repository of information. It's a great place to put things. You don't need to go back in your email, and I know each of you, when you have your direct reports, if you ever want to find something from a direct report, it's almost impossible in email, right? Unless you have this best filing system in the world. You have to think, Adrian works for me. I have to go look at like 10,000 emails from Adrian. Maybe I sort by attachment, or I kind of remember what date. When you use Chatter, it has a nice repository you can search. It's really easy. It improves engagement within the finance department. I'm going to talk about this a few times. But if you look around this room today, we don't have a lot of millennials. We don't have a lot of next generation people. And I don't know about your organization, but one of the biggest challenges I have is when I have a somewhat entry-level accounting position, maybe a mid-tier, what kind of person am I getting? A lot of times my choices are someone who's been doing the job for 30, 40 years and might not be kind of a trendsetter, or someone who's brand new. And when someone's brand new and you're bringing them into a legacy accounting system, and you're saying you have to hit F7 and Control 4, and you have to look at the code and the manual, it's tough on a couple of things. One, it's really tough in the interview process. I don't know any 25-year-old kid who's getting excited about this in the interview process. Second, when you interview, you have to put the first thing on your job description is like, do you have experience with Microsoft Dynamics Great Plains or something? So you're immediately limiting your field to just people who have worked on some semi-archaic, depending on your definition of archaic, accounting software. You're vastly limiting your field. When you go to these new products and you're using finance in the cloud and you're using Chatter, it really improves your engagement, and people are able to pick it up fast. And of course, they need to understand numbers and they need to understand operations. They can't be necessarily a marketing background and plop them in. But they don't need to know the accounting software, all the technologies. They can get up to speed on the technology really quick, but then they can also get help in the organization. It's also really helped with non-millennials. Now, I will say, we would represent non-millennials. There is sometimes a hurdle. Sometimes there's a little bit of pushback. I don't need this new technology. I like the way we've done it. But I ask you this question. Is there anyone, think of your department, is there anyone in your department that is resistant to change that you think that is a great employee? And I'll bet the answer to that is no. If you have some employees who are resistant to change and are good employees, I'd like to meet them, because they're few and far between. And what happens is, at first, the non-millennials are a little resistant to some of these changes in social accounting and stuff, and then they see the younger employees typically take the lead on it. And as long as someone in leadership is engaging in it, they really start to pick up, and they really start to say, hey, this is easier, this is more fun, this is more like my personal life. It's a great thing. Also improves engagement outside of the office, able to work from home, easier, business travel. I don't know if any of you have corporate email accounts that have a VPN, which is a total pain, right? Like, so if you're here today, maybe on your phone you can't open something up, and if you do have a phone, or you have to get in the VPN, but we don't have wireless here today, so there's no VPN access. So you can just open up Chatter. They can be, any files can be embedded in there, comments can be embedded in there. And I'm sure no one ever works on vacation. And I'm sure your spouse or significant other never gives you grief if you do, but it's a lot easier to go like on a Chatter feed. It kind of looks like Facebook, and you can stay up to date with work. It also improves engagement outside. If you use social media in your organization and finance as a leader in it, you can push things out to the executive team, to budget owners, to other departments. You're pushing things out, you're just not responding to their needs. What did I say, create an integrated social enterprise? Before Chatter, our organization had slower approval cycles and poor communication. It was very sequential. Emails, calls, and meetings that were very responsive. After our teams aligned better, there was more knowledge sharing, and we were social with public profiles, we had private groups, and real-time presence. One thing that Chatter allows, allows departments in finance to work together. It's really easy. It's much easier to integrate with sales. You can have common employee records that have basis of information on it that finance and sales or marketing or whatever engineering, whatever firm you represent can see. You also have a great audit trail. If anyone of you were in the session beforehand, in this room they talked about this, but your auditors love this. You're able to see transactions and changes, and it's all electronic. You don't have to see the file. It's also great to be able to easily look back and see some of the changes. Before Chatter, our customer interaction was not available. We become a customer service department. Audit backup was all over the place, and financial information was not readily available. If our financial analyst was out of the office, then no one was that day, whether they were sick or on vacation, then no one was getting their financial reports. By automating your finance and Chatter, it's able to be sent out, pushed. It's able to be live in real-time data. I probably just said a few of these things. We can spend a lot less time emailing, more collaborative, and less work. Employees outside of finance can see the data, so you don't have to be as responsive to their requests as much. So that was kind of a brief background on social media, but to me, you don't get the benefit of social media without having finance in the cloud. That is the real benefit of when you're combining your CRM and your accounting system and your social system. At my organization, we decided, instead of going best of class, we decided to go with the Force.com platform. And everything we do was built on the Force.com platform because Salesforce was so key to our organization. Then our accounting software was Force.com integrated. Our project management, we looked at Force.com. Expensify did a session here earlier today. That integrates with Force.com. You start lining up all these organizations and you have one platform. Otherwise, you get best of class clouds that you have to build APIs in between. And I don't know about your department and your organizations, but that always doesn't go as well as people seem to say it does. So we're going to skip this little slide because it didn't work somehow. But I'm going to still ask the question. How many of you are currently considering a new cloud application for finance? So first, let's get a raise of hands if yes, you're considering it within the year. Okay, 3, 4. How many are considering it within the next 3 years? Okay. And how many of you are currently on it? Okay. Okay, all right. So I'd say just for those who are more in the front, we have probably about 40% within the year, 40% within 3 years, and 20% are unsure. A little bit about Financial Force Accounting. It's one of the leading cloud-based accounting softwares. It has real-time visibility. It has comprehensive accounting built into the Salesforce platform, which I'll talk about more, but is of key importance to our organization and I'll argue potentially yours. It has role and user-based dashboard, one-click invoicing from Salesforce, and it's built in and integrates with social media and Chatter. Financial Force also has a PSA system for professional services that increases utilization rates, its revenue, projects more in time. Again, because it integrates with Salesforce, which most organizations are using. There's also commission-based subscription services that integrate with it. It's one platform. Some of the Financial Force business applications, again, professional services, accounting, your app, apps exchange. What I'd like to take a second to explain, some of you might know this, but when I talk about Financial Force working on the Salesforce platform, I think it's important just to pause on that a second. It's not a Salesforce program, it's its own program that works on the platform. The way I would explain it is I think most people in this room have an Apple or Android phone. Maybe a few people are holding on to BlackBerries that they're waiting for their corporation to move over. But the reason you love those phones is not because every product you have on there is Apple, or every product you have in there is Android. It's because there are all these great apps that are built on there. I personally am an Apple user, and my family is so ingrained to the Apple apps that I don't know how we could ever get off it. We become a customer for life. And in business, there's this platform called Force.com that is creating all these great business partners that integrate on it. In order to be on Force.com, you have to be at a certain standard, but you have to have a certain level of integration with the platform. So when I talk about FinancialForce.com, it's its own independent entity, but it sits on the platform and allows everything to talk. So when you look at a customer, when you pull up a customer, we are kind of a sales organization. You can see the sales record in there. You can see invoice records in there. If we have contracts with them, you can see contract. It's all in one record. You don't have to look at multiple places or multiple locations to find all that data. It's automatic. We didn't have to pay for extra API or anything. It's loaded and ready to go. Advantages of cloud finance. And this is going to be a little more technical on accounting and IT, but updates are done by the provider. You don't have to have an IT person. In a former Microsoft Dynamics world, updates would come out once a year. You have to shut your computer down for a couple of days. You have to hire a consultant for $30,000 to come in and load that and make sure everything works. No need for VPN access. We talked about it's available on mobile, which is incredible. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit. Your application adoption speed is great in your application markets. You have the ability to do the app exchange. In the workflow, you can set up easy approval rules. We, in our organization, again, it's always hard talking about accounting because we probably have some, $1 billion companies in here and some $1 million companies in here. So it's a little bit different. I recognize everyone's accounting situation is different. But we set up workflows. Had a relatively small accounting department of 4 to 6 people of doing pure accounting, where certain people could enter and they couldn't post, and certain people could post and they couldn't enter. And it sounds really easy, but not all cloud systems are like that. And certainly those from QuickBooks aren't like that, and certainly some that have the more robust accounting softwares, it's a little, you can't do it online, you're printing out a lot of things. This was a great win for us, to be able to set up the approval rules however we wanted to within financialforce.com. Can be online 24/7, and I talked about this before. It was really a familiar interface for non-finance staff. I'll tell a story here. I had an employee who had just had his review. We weren't using this new product yet. We were kind of on an older accounting product, and their review was one where they were pretty much out the door. I was deciding. I would have given them a D- on their review if we were kind of using the grade letter system. Just wasn't getting the system, wasn't engaged, was only doing the minimum amount of work. And I was really ready to let this employee go. Well, I know we had already decided to go to financialforce.com, and I thought, this person has some institutional knowledge. I don't want to make the change just yet. I'll keep them on until we migrate, and then I'll let them go. Well, we migrated, and the craziest thing happened is this employee, they didn't go from a D- to an A+, but they went from a D- to like a B+. And all of a sudden, they were engaged. They found the product interesting. They're like, wow, this is really applicable to me, and it's cutting-edge technology, and it's more understandable, and the dashboards make it easier to understand. And it really revolutionized this one employee. And it's all because it was more familiar to what their daily life was. It wasn't that they went to work and had to work on some archaic accounting system that had no relevance to their real life work. And it also caused them to go above and beyond. Start looking more at Wired magazine and PC magazine, different things that are saying what's coming in the technology world. It made the employee much more engaged and a much better worker for us. The advantages, dashboards is one of the largest advantages. You can see these are custom, these are built in, these are real time. So you set up your GL in the Force.com platform, and then you set up the reports, and they just pop out. You don't have to have a financial analyst doing all this work in Excel. For small to medium business, which we can ask some Financial Force people later, I would say under 200 million. It's maybe 500 million, and this product's ready to go. On a larger business, you do have to look at what your needs are and how it integrates with finance in the cloud. A lot of larger businesses are taking pieces. They might take the accounts receivable piece, or they might take the reporting piece, and they kind of phase into it over time. It is difficult for some billion-dollar corporations to let go of their Oracle product overnight. Other advantages, security. I don't think I need to spend a lot of time on security today. This is ProformaTECH. But when you get this speech, we were joking about it before, particularly outside of California. I was talking to a group in Dallas. Is anyone from Dallas? No? Okay. And And I got to this kind of slide, and they said, well, that might be great for all you progressive Californians, but I'm not sure how this internet security works for Texans. And I said, well, I thought Californians were progressive for another reason. I didn't know our accounting was progressive. And but there's a lot of people out there that still don't trust the cloud from a secure standpoint. And all I have to say to that is these companies, they're incented to be the most secure networks possible. I'm sure their security is over and above whatever you have at your local operation. You also, at your local operation, you run the risk of user error, of server failure, of redundancy failure. You have all these other things that are taken out of your hands. Another advantage of cloud finance, particularly with Salesforce and Financial Force, is contracting. We were able to make our contracting process, so whether we were contracting on a deal or with a contractor, solely native within Salesforce and Financial Force. So if I wanted to contract with Jane Doe, we got DocuSign involved in the process. It would be one click. We emailed it. We had an internal routing process. It was approved. Went out to Jane Doe. Jane Doe signed it electronically, and all of a sudden, bam, it was right in the system. We actually tied it to a GL account, a sub-account, our fourth sub-account, so then we could track the contract spend against the actual spend. And with a lot of other products, I don't know how you do this. You have your separate procurement process, and then somehow you try to integrate it with accounting. Usability is a big advantage of cloud finance. It's more flexible with worker location. Marissa Meyer's come under a lot of heat lately with her saying that employees aren't allowed to work from home because I can have a baby and be back to work in 2 weeks so everyone can be at work. And I don't think that's going to fly. I think in accounting it's never really flown, right? Like most people in accounting or finance or operations or IT, you need to be in the office. And I just don't think that's the model where you're going to attract and retain high-level employees forever and ever. There will always be core people. You don't want people cutting checks from home, and there's some other responsibilities you don't want from home, but the workforce is evolving and changing. If we're saying you can only work in our organization in finance and operations, if you sit in a cubicle in our main headquarters, which frankly a lot of times is more expensive than if you got someone from instead of in the Bay Area, you contracted with someone from Modesto, or you had an employee in Modesto that worked in, you don't have to pay them the same rates. There's a lot of cost savings and efficiencies of scale. Much easier access when traveling, which we talked about, and improved engagement with millennials. ROI, the favorite of everyone at this conference. I'm sure everyone asked about the ROI. The cloud has a lower total cost of ownership. Your on-premise has a lot of hidden costs from hardware, consultants, infrastructure, maintenance, dedicated staff, upgrades. Cloud computing, according to the Yankee Group, has a 46% lower total cost of ownership. What I'll tell you, practically speaking, is year one, there's not a lot of difference because you have some help you're normally getting from the vendor as you're scaling up, and you have some implementation costs. But once you implement it, it is implemented and it is done, and you just expense. We can get into expense versus capitalization, but you expense your IT cost and it's over. You don't have to worry about if your IT person leaves or if your server needs an upgrade or any of this thing. It's taken care of, it's easier, and it's less expensive. This just is another graph that shows on the far left, multi-tenant software as a service is significantly lower than on-premise. Back to ROI, I think there are some easy ways to measure ROI. One is reduced days in your month-end cycle. You're able to make better decisions because the information is happening faster. You're not waiting on Excel. You're not waiting on financial analysts. Everything is closing within the system. And reduced IT costs, which I just touched on. You are really saving a lot on IT employees, IT consultants, office space, especially when you're a firm of like 1,000 people or less. I was talking to someone who said they have tens of thousands of employees and they might not see the IT savings. I think that's a valid point for those of us who have tens of thousands of employees, but I think most of us in this room don't work for employees that have tens of thousands of employees. And then there's the ROI that's real but more difficult to measure. Improved employee satisfaction and engagement. At Blue Shield of California, employee satisfaction was one of our main drivers of 2012. And it was something that, frankly, was pretty poor. And we need to find, and finance almost always lags. Unless you're a rock star boss, it's not the sexiest of all the industries. You know, marketing and PR always are kind of the most engaged and what have you. But it's a real way to drive your employee satisfaction and engagement. Both from a fun standpoint, but it's also, if you go on the cloud finance and you use social enterprise, it gets people more collaborating. And people don't feel as isolated in their queue. Less sick days and temps. I'm not suggesting here that by doing this you will be healthier, although some people will say a happier person is sick less. But you'll get a lot less, I have a doctor's appointment today, I can't come into work. I have to meet the cable guy, I know that's against policy, but I still have to meet the cable guy, I can't come into work. You have people that are available to work from home, to work partial days. You have a lot less outtime, and you have an improved efficiency when everything works together and talks together. It really has transformed my job as a CFO. I can be everywhere, or I can be anywhere. I don't have to only be at my desk. I can come to a function like this. I can take a little time. I can see my daughters play at 3 p.m. And I can still get my work done. I'm not tied to my desk. I have a much easier time attracting and retaining talent. I wish there were more statistics on this. And I won't say trust me, but I can just tell you when you're using more enjoyable tools that are more collaborative and more cutting edge, you retain talent and you attract talent much easier. And I can share data more easily across the organization. I got in a spirited debate the other day on what is the future of Excel. And you know, some people think Excel will never go away. I have to say, you know, if you look back 20 years ago what tools we were using, things have changed a lot in 20 years. And I think Excel is going to change. I think we're going to get to a point where these accounting software packages and Financial Force is doing some of this already with internal reporting package. You really don't need Excel. You're going to become dashboards, a dashboard-driven organization. Occasionally you're going to want to export something out, but it might not be your reliance on Excel and having 8 financial analysts run all kinds of fun reports that someone in your organization always says cell C18 has a reference error. So end-to-end in Salesforce, I talked to this before, we chose the Force.com platform, and we could use it for our CRM, billing, accounting, time and expense, professional services. It was a one-stop shop. We'll kind of end with this. I think I have like 7 or 8 minutes left. I have 1 or 2 more slides, and then we'll open it up to questions. How to get a winning social cloud strategy. I think this is really important. So if you think this information is good, what do you do with it? And I think one is you identify allies outside of your company. People in this room, other people you know, other cohorts that do the same thing you do. Find out from them. Get experiences. One of the best things I did when I was going through some of this is identified a colleague I have at Nike, and we kind of went through this process together, and it was more enjoyable, and we had a better end product when we did this, because it wasn't just our viewpoint. We were able to talk to different salespeople, we were able to talk to different engineers, get different perspectives, and then huddle together. Identify a team inside of your company. Don't try to do it yourself. I would recommend that you would be the leader, and that you at minimum have 2 other people on the team. One is someone who is probably younger, who is probably more familiar with the technology. One is probably your controller or someone that's going to be really technical about it, and you make a team as you're identifying. Point 3, identifying different products. There are some great products here. It's not a very crowded field. You don't need to either. I think there's roughly 3 cloud finance packages and 3 social enterprise packages. You don't have to identify 55 vendors. It's pretty simple. Develop a sequential order of implementation. This is more on your size. I would say if you're 50 million and under, I would go for it all at once. This is just my personal viewpoint. If you're larger, you might sequence it a little bit, like you might do AR and you might do GL or what have you, and you might sequence it, but look into that. And don't be afraid to beta it. It's a very easy product to beta, especially on the reporting side. You can take your enterprise ERP, you can export the data and you can dump it into financialforce.com and run reports and see what it will look like. It's very easy to beta. And I think we have 5 minutes, and that's my presentation. So thanks. I know it's a lot of listening to one person talk today. and that's always difficult. But does anyone have any questions about social media in the enterprise, or Financial Force, or finance in the cloud, or anything?
Yeah, I'm totally sold on it, and I totally trust the security.
Yeah.
Do you have any guidelines, or how do you suggest putting guidelines around confidentiality of information, especially when you get up to, say, payroll or financing, especially in a finance organization?
So there are rules in each program. In Salesforce, there are rules where you can restrict people and restrict views. So I say this, it's tricky, and you need to think through it. But we all email files that are super secure, right? And we might password protect it, but what's to say that Jane Doe doesn't forward that file to someone else in the organization or what have you? I think in a lot of ways this is actually more secure, because you can't forward it to someone else. It's embedded in the system. You have to have permission to get in. And I don't know who uses SharePoint or what have you, but at some point you always have to set up protocols for how you're storing your secure data. It's not really any different. We have on Chatter, I have a Chatter feed that part of my chat, I'm in a group that is the whole organization, but I'm in a group that's just the executive team. And we post some pretty confidential things in there. It's hard sometimes. You think, am I posting to the wrong group? But it's not any different than when you email and you're making sure you have all the right names on the email.
Do you invite customers into some of your groups as well?
We don't. Some people do. There are versions of that, and you can do that and set up security protocols, and they're just in a certain vertical of what they can see and what they can.
Because I'd love to be able to invite customers into chat to feeds. Yeah. But I wouldn't want one customer to know what discount another customer got by accident.
No, what you do is you would invite them. You can do two things. You can invite them kind of on from my understanding, like more of an IM chatter where they can communicate with you kind of directly, or you invite them to a group. And you just know that group, I think it would be really tricky to have each customer relationship its own vertical, but I mean, you could go there if you want to. Yeah. All right, well, nothing else. I'm going to show one more minute video if I could have your time, that I thought was funny. Maybe you don't think it's funny, but I don't think it's funny. So it's about social media.
Media expert Ashley Williams. Ashley, welcome to Talk Marketing Talk with Dan Wolf and Orton.
Thank you, Dan. Glad to be here.
Ashley, for those of us who don't know, what exactly is social media and what makes someone an expert in it?
Well, Dan, no one really knows about social media other than it's something we all need to exist. Like air.
Do I need social media?
Yes, you do.
But you didn't answer my first question. What makes someone like you a qualified expert in social media?
Have you seen my website?
Yes.
And my business card?
Yes.
And what does it say?
Social media artist, scientist, expert, guru.
Good job.
So, you all can go back to your organizations now and tell everyone that you're a social media and cloud finance expert. Thanks a lot.